Greetings to those just coming in. This is Baba Kenyatta. And while we're waiting for additional attendees, I just like for you all to answer the question in the chat. What is education to you? And if you have any idea, I'd like you to share your ideas on why you believe America is using Common Core. If you have any other additional questions that you'd like to ask, feel free to type those in the chat as well, and we'll see if we can answer those towards the end of the session. So our organization is a nonprofit organization called BitRick, and BitRick is the mother company to African Math and other innovative curriculum that we're developing here. We'd like to invite anyone who's interested in African-centered education material to support our line of composition books called Sacred Struggle Series. You can find those at amazon.com/author/African Learners. And there you will find composition books that have heroes of African American and African history. Okay. So for those who are, again, just coming in, the question on the floor was, what is education and why is America using Common Core? So we have some very insightful answers on what education is. So again, my name is Baba Kenyatta. I'm also known as Nkosi. So we just like to introduce myself. I'm here with my lovely wife, Hinda, and she's also my assistant here at African Math. We also are the founders of BitRick, which is our nonprofit organization. And we're here today to basically discuss Common Core. We get a lot of comments from parents and educators who are really having a hard time adjusting to Common Core and wrapping their heads around exactly what it is. So we're offering this free educational opportunity to give a little insight into Common Core, where it is today, and how we can prepare for this upcoming school year to make sure that we can help as educators provide the best quality of education to our learners.
Yeah, this is Mama Penda. Greetings, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening. As Baba stated, this is a free webinar series that we're hosting. We're actually going to be having 2 more sessions after this one. They will be next Thursday and the following Thursday. So we hope that you will join us again then, and also tell others. We'll be sure to send out those details after this meeting.
So now let's jump into it. Let's have some fun jumping into exactly what Common Core is all about. And from what our experience is, Common Core is all about globalization. Globalization is the process in which businesses or other organizations develop international influence or start operating on an international scale. So we are now entering the 4th industrial revolution, and we are well on our way to becoming a globalized society. And the education of the global citizens are being structured to respond to the needs of a global society. I encourage you as educators and as parents to please do research on the 4th industrial revolution and also start to think globally when it comes to the education of your learners, because that's where a lot of the opportunities are going to exist. And believe it or not, one of the most advantageous places to be on earth during the time of globalization is in the United States of America. If you are a parent in the United States of America, there are tremendous advantages in America to provide you for globalization. And if you're in the continent of Africa, believe it or not, there's huge room for growth within the continent of Africa. Aligning opportunities from America to Africa through international business or international trade. In the era of globalization, there are a tremendous amount of opportunities. So I encourage you all to look into that. So what does globalization have to do with Common Core? The thing that I would encourage you to research is an organization called Pisa. And with that, I'm going to start to show a few videos to give more insight.
How does PISA, the Programme for International Student Assessment, work? Although it's the brainchild of the Organisation for Economic Cooperation and Development, based in Paris, France, the assessment is designed by education experts from around the world. In fact, since the programme began in 2000, every one of the more than 80 economies that have participated in PISA have contributed some of their best minds to creating a test the whole world can take. The assessment tries to find out whether students can apply what they have learned in school to real-life situations. It covers science, reading, mathematics, and some more innovative subjects like collaborative problem-solving or financial literacy. Countries volunteer to participate in PISA. If a country is not equipped to take part in such a large-scale assessment, regions of that country may participate on their own. Once a country is approved by the PISA Governing Board, individual schools are chosen based on stringent criteria to represent all 15-year-old students in that country. Students who participate in PISA are randomly chosen from among all the 15-year-olds enrolled in grade 7 or higher in the selected schools. They take the test in the same language they use in their normal classes. Students aren't asked to recall dates and names they may have memorized. Instead, they are asked to interpret texts, solve mathematics problems, or explain a phenomenon scientifically using their knowledge and reasoning skills. Students aren't given individual reports on how they did on the PISA test, but their scores count towards a national mean score. Despite what you may hear every 3 years when PISA results are announced, PISA is not just about ranking countries. It's about showing whether school systems are becoming more or less effective in preparing their students for further study or for work. It's about learning whether 15-year-olds are acquiring the social and emotional skills they'll need to thrive, like knowing how to work and communicate with others. And it's about taking the results of the assessment, translating them into millions of pieces of data, and putting those pieces together to create a picture of what the most effective education systems look like. In the end, these systems are the ones in which all students, not just the most advantaged, are given the best opportunities to learn and the greatest support in realizing their potential. PISA aims not only to show how these systems are constructed, but to encourage countries to learn from each other's experience in building fairer and more inclusive school systems.
So basically, in a nutshell, that is telling you about the PISA test. And this is one of 2 international tests. There's another test we're going to take a look at called the TIMSS test in a second. But just to give you insight into how America is performing on the test, let's see. So if you notice, the average is 490, and that's for the OECD. So the average is 490. Notice that the top performers are from Asia. So you have Singapore, Hong Kong, you have China, and they're in the top 500s. Then as you get closer down, you start getting to Canada and Netherlands. Some of the top performers in Europe. And as you go further and further down, still some of the top performers in Europe. And the US is ranking about 470, which is 20 points lower than the average, right? So the US is here at about 470, which is 20 points lower than the OECD average of 490. So right now, the US can be consistently performing at about a C or D. And that's why Common Core actually exists. because the goal is to increase America's performance on these international tests. And if you remember from the video, the objective is to learn how to adopt best practices from other countries and from other cultures. So what we're experiencing here in the United States right now is a complete change in the culture of mathematics. It's actually a cultural change. So that's why it's very important that we as educators become a little more flexible in our approach to teaching mathematics and be ready to learn different approaches and different strategies to teach mathematics as we receive them through Common Core and from other cultures. Because actually the catalyst of Common Core is basically math practices that come from other cultures. And typically these cultures are cultures who have preserved some sort of ancient math practice that was acquired in antiquity. Are there any questions before I move on to the next part of the presentation? Okay. Please, if you have any questions, please type them in the chat. And now I'm going to show you the other test. Let me see. So this is called, the next test is called the TIMSS test. The test we just got through learning about was called the Pisa test. And the Pisa test is from the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. So please write that down because you can do any additional further research to get more information on how to prepare children, learning more about the Pisa test. So then there's the TIMSS test. The TIMSS test is Trends in Mathematics and Science and Study, and it's from the organization of the International Association for the Evaluation of Educational Achievement. And this is another international body that performs another standardized test study that is very closely related to Common Core.
We are here to discuss the results of TIMSS, the Trends in International Mathematics and Science Study, launched by us, the IEA, and conducted by our partner, Boston College. TIMSS assesses the mathematics and science achievement of grade 4 and grade 8 students. It also assesses the mathematics and physics knowledge of mathematics and physics specialists at the end of grade 12. TIMSS looks at the intended curriculum, so what's intended by policymakers, the implemented curriculum, so what teachers are teaching and doing in the lessons, and the achieved curriculum, so what students have learned in schools. This makes our study relevant for policymakers, practitioners, and the general audience. We also collect rich background information from the assessed students, from their mathematics and science teachers, from the principals, and for grade 4 students, even from their parents. Let me give you some figures. In 2015, TIMSS was conducted in 57 countries and 7 benchmark entities. We assessed more than 600,000 students worldwide, with more than 1,000 assessment items.
Okay, so that was TIMSS. And if you look here, if you go to the website and notice they're in partnership with Boston College, you can find the TIMSS mathematics framework. And the reason this is very important is because you'll see where the language for Common Core begins. And we'll go more into this in later sessions, but as we scroll down, you'll see that there's something called content domains, and then they'll tell you what percentage of study it is. And then you have things like measurement and geometry and data, numbers, algebra, geometry, data probability. And then when we get into Common Core, we'll come down and we'll find out that the same thing is the case when you have standards by domain. Again, we're going to get more into depth with this in later sessions, but it's just to show you that Common Core has a similar language and terminology as TIMSS, where you're seeing we're getting to the exact same description of the Common Core and TIMSS, because Common Core is based largely on the TIMSS framework. Now, as we look into that, we have to start understanding the impact on that and culture. American culture, when it comes to mathematics, is that as you saw, we're not performing as well as we can when it comes to our international peers. But again, our international peers have preserved an ancient math method, and they've continued it throughout the development of their country into the modern era. America has the benefit of being a compilation of different people from different cultures that have different contributions. And unfortunately, most Americans are unaware of the contributions that were made by the Americans that brought math to the United States of America. So that's why we've lost contact and an awareness of our ancient math system, even though we still have an ancient math system here in America. Most people are just unaware of it. So what we're going to do is give a little insight. There's this documentary coming out that we need to sit down and watch together. It's called Gatekeeper Math in America.
-20 equals -4x.
Walk into a math class and stand at the front of the room. Don't watch the teacher. Look in the kids' faces, look in their eyes. That tells the whole story.
Math, as soon as I got to math class, I just shut down, like my brain went out the door.
I hated it.
I just felt like, why am I here?
In the United States, people think people have a math gene. Either you're born with it or you're not. If you don't have it, then you just don't have it.
Teachers believe that, parents believe it, students believe it, and it's one of the reasons that we have such widespread math failure and math trauma in the States.
I'd go home and I'd have like 3 hours of homework and I wouldn't understand how to do any of it.
Combine like terms. When we teach traditional math, we teach kids a very small fraction of what math is. Add 2.
Math is normally taught in a way that doesn't make sense. If you don't think math should make sense, if you don't think you have the math gene, you'll quit.
Here we have Stanford students, top performing students in the country, who harbor this math anxiety and fear. And this happens to a lot of women, unfortunately. Their career options shrink massively.
Math is a great gatekeeper.
It's not only a gatekeeper, it's just a solid wall. We lose so many underrepresented minorities from mathematics that they are being essentially denied access to the pathways that quantitative literacy provides in our society.
There's a huge math crisis amongst low, middle and high achievers that's so severe now. People are worried about the future of science and technology and medicine in the US.
How do we use the language the students own to access the language of science and the language of math?
I have a pattern now, so we get one hard problem every day, and that's what we do the entire time.
What I like is that we need to figure it out by ourselves.
You use some math you know to solve some kind of new math that you haven't solved before.
Wait, that's why there's 8 cubes that are 3-sided here.
This kind of math makes me want to do it because it's fun. I have to come up with my own formulas. And not only do I have to come up with my own formula, I have to prove that it's correct.
That was like this. Oh, they're all corners.
We actually have decades of studies that have shown us that when kids learn math actively, they do better. They not only do better on traditional tests and standardized tests, they do better on applied assessments where they had to take the mathematics they had learned and use it to solve complex problems.
Add the 8 and the 7 together.
I said, this is the most incredible thing I've ever seen, but how am I gonna explain this to the teachers back at my school?
What is 10 plus 4?
Jana called me and said, come see what's happening in Lisa's room.
It's the same answer.
Yeah. They're both great strategies.
Literally left that room, ran to my second grade team and said, we're doing this.
To see her just break down, crying day after day about math, it tore me to pieces, but I told her we're not gonna stop.
I feel like the school board was making a huge mistake.
People are coming from around California to see why what we're doing is so successful.
And I really wanted the opportunity to say, please don't do this.
The level of work that my students are able to create is at a totally new level.
You were not supposed to get relievers.
At the end of a really good math lesson, children say, I did it, we did it. You know, they don't say, the teacher taught us something.
When we learn, when students learn, they're not just learning new knowledge, they're actually shaping their identity as people. Because when we learn, it changes who we are as people.
Now, the primary reason why I'm showing these videos is to comfort parents in knowing that it's okay for you to embrace a different type of math practice that's different from your traditional math practice, because the whole Western world it's not just the United States of America, it's other Western countries as well. I'll give you examples of how even in the UK, the school systems there, as you saw, performed below some of their international peers. So the entire approach is, if you can't beat them, join them. So we can even show you examples of other countries that are embracing different cultures when it comes to teaching their learners mathematics. So I just want us to not feel uneasy about adopting different math practices or exploring different approaches, and also don't feel uneasy in that if what your children are bringing home look foreign, it's okay, because it most likely is. So that means that we have to just get comfortable with learning math practices that may differ from the math practices we grew up with.
Remember, math textbooks, which have seen great success in Shanghai, will be seen in about half of the UK primary schools' classrooms. So a new made-in-China product is now being added to the country's export list. Well, the textbooks reportedly help the pupils from a deep understanding of the basic concepts and theorems and help them apply the proper methods to resolve problems. There is more to the textbooks than just wonderful explanations. The outstanding performances of the Shanghai pupils have much to do with the unique teaching practices that complement the material. Our reporter Hunan visited a primary school in Shanghai to see what children in the UK can expect next term.
Chinese teaching practices and discipline have been in the spotlight recently, with a plan to translate a Chinese math textbook to use in British primary schools. What's so special about Chinese math teaching and education methods? The essence of Shanghai's approach to math teaching lies in its belief that all pupils can succeed. Its whole-class interactive teaching method aims to develop conceptual understanding and procedural fluency. Lessons are designed to be accessible to all through in-class interaction and incremental progression.
除了教材之外，其实还有很多
There is plenty of supportive content other than textbooks, such as the renewal of the teaching ideology and quality in class interaction. Another feature of Shanghai's primary school teachings is the faculty group discussions, including textbook unit and theme studies, to keep the faculty at the same level of understanding and maintain a smooth and gradual development of teaching practices in different grades.
While Shanghai's math teachers put in about 15 hours in the classroom on average per week, there is still plenty for them to get through after the bell rings.
Official hours are spent in the classroom and giving extra tuition to students to put them up to the average level. After work, however, we need to correct their homework on time and give feedback to their questions.
Since 2014, primary school teachers and officials from the UK have been working with their counterparts in China to get a better understanding of the teaching methods and the system.
Every year, they have more than 70 teachers come to Shanghai. Usually, they will stay in Shanghai for several weeks, and after that, we will send some teachers to England. We shall do the comparative studies, we shall learn each other's. So in this way, all the teachers can share the best experiences on their background of the country, of the society, of the culture. And then all the students, no matter in the West and the East, can join the most efficient and also most happy ways of learning.
Hunan, CGTN, Shanghai.
And there, for anyone who's interested, there are additional videos that I have to show you about how America has been drawn to. So if you saw that the UK has adopted some of China's math methods, but America gravitated more towards Singapore math methods. So a lot of the things that are embedded in Common Core are actually Singapore math. And the Singapore math approach was tried out in New York through Engage New York. And then after they did a pilot program there, the curriculum was organized into what is called Eureka Math. And now Eureka Math has been rolled out into public schools in like 40 or more states in the United States of America. So there you're going to see a transformation in math culture throughout the United States of America as the United States has gone out and imported what they perceive to be best practices when it comes to mathematics. Now there's an equation and there's a very important math method they're excluding, which is the indigenous math method of the United States of America, which was brought here to build the infrastructure of America. And that is the math method that was brought here by the ancestors of African Americans. So the very math system that we use here in the United States of America is actually, it's not the imperial system, it's an ancient African math system. It's a binary measurement system after which our organization is named. The cubit in the Bible is the measurement system that was used to build ancient Egypt. It's also the exact same math method that's in the Eye of Haru, the Eye of Ra, also known as the Eye of Horus, and it's a base 2 measurement system. Today we know it because it's the same exact measurement system that's used in our modern day computers and is used to measure data. And the smallest data is called the bit. That inspired the name of our organization, which is BitRick, which also means it represents a binary measurement system. So the name of our organization embeds the name of the historical legacy of mathematics, not only in the United States of America, but the first advanced mathematics of mankind. We do not start everyone teaching the BitRick method, which is the binary measurement method, but African math does have numeracy systems and methods that will lead you up into the binary measurement system that we call the BitRick system. We plan on having a couple of other sessions. We're going to have some more sessions, and I'm going to give you more information. Actually, my wonderful wife's going to give you information about our future sessions.
Yeah, so hopefully you all have just a glimpse of the Common Core. We had the website up earlier that showed all the different domains, and those different domains have different standards for each grade level.
She's not talking about domain. She's not talking about like web domains. She's talking about Common Core domains, but go ahead.
Right, so if you remember, there was the operations and algebraic thinking, counting and cardinality, geometry. So those domains are, again, their standards defined for each grade level. And we've been working, we, the African Math team, have been working diligently to review those standards and to, I guess,
build African math methods, or take those standards and satisfy the requirements of those standards using African math methods and African math strategies. Sister Crystal, are you here? Sister Crystal is a parent from one of our current African math classes.
Yes, I'm here.
So yes, Sister Crystal has honored us with her wonderful son, Edward, and he's been taking African math. And I just wanted you to share your experience with our listeners, but just solely for the purpose of helping to share the cultural differences with mathematics. Like from the videos we watched, we saw that Asia has a very deeply rooted culture of mathematics that they're sharing with the world. And I just wanted you to share what your experience has been with African math as opposed to the traditional culture that America has embraced with the rote memorization and the math memorization, and how African math differs. So let's just go back to just thinking about when you first started African math. How was our approach different from you were saying the monotony of the counting so do you recall how it was different when you first started?
Yes. Well, at first I was confused because he was having to do a lot of counting, counting forwards and counting backwards. And I was sure that he knew how to count forwards and count backwards. But then I started to realize the more that he counted forwards and that he counted backwards, it was just another way of teaching him addition and subtraction. Mm-hmm. And I realized that when he first started, although we had been working on math and he knew his numbers and everything, that he hadn't actually mastered counting forward and counting backward, which could have been an issue when it was time to start to add and subtract. And so I, eventually, as he was counting forward and counting backward over and over and over again, I could see how it was actually benefiting him. Mm-hmm. And then I could also see how he was actually starting to have fun with it. The more he would master it, he didn't feel like it was boring work. He felt like more of it was like a confidence booster because he had done it so much. And he'd be like, oh yeah, I can do this, this is no problem. As a matter of fact, you tell me go to 50, I'll go to, 100, just to kind of like show off. And, and so, yeah, so we noticed a lot of that with, and then, the gradual learning of new concepts as well. I don't know how deep you want me to get into this.
No, please share.
But also you all taught him math concepts gradually. So as opposed to, I can remember being in school and it was almost like one day you showed up in school and they were like, hey, welcome, this is algebra, here you go. Worry about this. Here's some X's and some Y's, good luck.
Right.
Whereas with you all, he's been learning stuff so gradually that he doesn't even realize that the work is getting a little bit more challenging. And he's able to, again, master the last step before he moves on to a new step.
So would you say that African math is just math the same way that everyone else learns it, with just a different cultural presentation, or would you say it's just a totally different approach to mathematics?
I would say it's totally different. Culturally, it's different. There's no memorization. I can remember being in school and having, my worst memory is memorizing times tables. And I can remember like learning songs to just remember the answers to multiplication problems and stuff. And so that's the biggest thing, is that he doesn't have to memorize, which culturally turns it into, he loves math. He looks forward to having math class, and he'll tell anybody, I'm a genius, I know math. He'll tell me like, Mom, I'm killing these math equations, and just to see that he has a completely different relationship with math than I had when I was younger, it's very refreshing.
Now, one thing that Sister Crystal did not mention is her level of involvement with her son's African math education. And because she's been a phenomenal parent and has been extremely hands-on in helping him to master the concepts that he's learned. So Crystal, could you just tell everyone just a little bit about how you've learned African math and how your learning of the procedures has helped you to help your son?
I've learned a lot, and I've learned to change my language when it comes to talking to him about school in general. So we don't say math problems, it's equations, or math puzzle, and all these things sound like it doesn't even matter, but it matters to the kids. It really does. And so, he can argue all day long about, okay, I don't want to do a problem, or I don't want to do school work, like who wants to work, But if I say, come on, let's play with this math puzzle. And then, he hears puzzle and play, and he's like, okay, let's, let me see what Mom is talking about. And so, so we work on math every day. On some level, whether it's organic, whether we're in the kitchen and we're talking about math, or whether he sees a math equation. I remember one day he was working on some just regular puzzles on the floor, and he saw a box of the puzzles, and it was 3 different puzzles in the box, and each puzzle had 49 pieces. And he saw the equation. It said 3 times 49. And he was like, oh, Mommy, look, this says 3 times 49. Let's solve this. So we spent an evening solving 3 times 49. And so for us, this is like an everyday thing. And what I've noticed is that going to class is awesome, but it's really like that everyday practice that helps him become a master at what he learns in class.
So how do you, so what does your day look like when it comes to that practice? Is it drudgery and dragging out flashcards, or what is it? What's an African math experience, so that parents who might not be aware of it, so they can.
There's no drudgery. There's no sadness. We use anything that he is interested in. Because of the African math concepts that you all had taught him, he's learned that he can make anything a number. So he can pull out his NASCAR Hot Wheels and he'll say, okay, these are my 10s today, you know, and he'll pull out sticks and say, these are my 1s.
Okay, so he has a mastery of a thorough, deeper understanding of place value, and he has, okay, so he has objects represent different place value. That's awesome. That's one thing we definitely assess. Just so everyone knows, how old is your son, and what grade is he in, and have you tried any other math programs prior to African math? And how is
Trey is 6. We call him Trey for short. He's 6, and
so that's a first grade, kindergarten.
yeah,
First grade.
around first grade. And he we tried Kumon before we met you all. I mean, we were willing to pay for anything that was going to help. And so, you know, we figured, oh, Kumon's down the street, you know, let's go enroll him in Kumon. And we did for all of like 4 weeks. And, you know, my baby was crying over Kumon, and he hated going. He was very sad when it was time to go to Kumon. Just the environment and the culture in there, you know, because they have like all the parents sit on like the outside of the room and the kids go in there, which was a little intimidating for him anyway, because he was only 3 when he got started there. But it was very quiet. He couldn't talk. I mean, he couldn't get up and move. Can you imagine like trying to get a 3-year-old to like go in this room? You know, your parents are over here, but I want you to sit down with this stranger, you know, be quiet and just listen. And it didn't go too well. So after about 4 weeks, I don't even think it was a month, we went ahead and pulled him out. Just because it was taking something away from him that I wanted him to keep, which was a love for learning.
Definitely a love. That's something we definitely stress. I think that's the most important thing, to teach a child to love a subject, because sometimes I think as parents, especially intense parents who have the best of intentions, but who might not have been equipped with the best methods, we might inadvertently teach our children to loathe a subject instead of love it. So that's something we're very cognizant of here with the African math program, and all BitRick curriculums, where we really strive for them to be child-centered, and the priority of the child's learning experience is the most important thing. And that's also to prevent a tremendous problem here in the United States of America and amongst people of African descent, and that's math anxiety. So that the other thing that we concentrate on here at African Math is how to prevent math anxiety. You wanted to share something?
Yes, well, Sister Crystal gave us some really great information. Thank you so much for sharing that. As everyone was able to hear, she's and her son have practiced daily, and the only way that she's able to do that is from learning the program herself and from learning the methods. And so that's why at this stage, what we are really seeking to do is to support and empower the parents and the educators. And that's why we opened up this session today. That's why we're going to have a few more over the next few weeks. But after that time, starting in September, we actually want to open up and have an official weekly live online parent and educator series. And what we want to do is to meet with parents and educators in the evening, on Thursday evenings, the same time, and to be able to not only teach you all the African math techniques and games, terminology, but to be able to support you in your learners or your children as they continue forward. Again, we've learned a lot, whether a child is being homeschooled, whether they're in public school, whether they're in private school. 9 times out of 10, there's a gap. There's a deficit and they're not really getting that love for learning that they really deserve to have. And we want to help with that by hosting these sessions. And basically, the sessions are going to, again, meet every week on Thursdays, but the registration for them will be monthly. So we're going to have Q&A, and I'll mention this again later and give the exact details. But the cost for the sessions is going to be $150 a month. But for everyone who's attending today and moving forward up until August 23rd, we're actually going to discount that to $100. And the way we like to do things is, if you support us, we want to do our best to support you. So getting in early by joining the sessions early, that pretty much gives you the opportunity to take advantage of the lower rate than if you were to wait and join later. Because we want to connect, we want to help, we want to grow and develop everyone together. And unfortunately, we can't do it all on our own. So we really need the parents to be as involved as possible to make the best outcome, to have the children be most successful.
And to me, if we could, we would definitely like to do everything at no cost. But the reality is the only way that we can continue to support the community is if we receive your support. So we're trying our best to make it as affordable as possible. On average, you're spending about $25 per session because you get 4 sessions in a week. And in those sessions, it's not just about the math. What we're really trying to foster and build is a community of support where you have like-minded individuals who have similar experiences that you can collaborate and you can meet with on a weekly basis to discuss the challenges and the successes of being a parent in America, and meet with other people who understand the challenges of being educated in a country that has not made getting an education the easiest thing to do, especially in the public school area. So we have a lot of parents that are homeschooling, but we need to come together as parents and take back ownership of the education of our young people, because believe it or not, it's not realistic or even fair to ask other groups of people to adequately educate our own children. It's our responsibility to educate our children, and we have to take ownership of that responsibility and do our due diligence and solve the academic challenges in our community and not force other people to participate in that. There was a time in the development of the education system here in the United States of America was the priority was equal facilities and equal access. But now, even with equal facilities and equal access, American schools are, believe it or not, returning to be just as segregated as they were prior to the Civil Rights Movement. And our math performances and our academic performances in public schools in the United States of America have not gotten better, where the achievement gap, as it's called, has remained consistent for the past 20 years. So with that, we are looking to organize and galvanize with other like-minded educators and parents for the purpose of committing ourselves to improving the quality of education for our own children, and to do so unapologetically. This has nothing to do with being against any other group of people. We are people of African descent, and we have shared concerns with other people of African descent all around the globe. And we are in a position, and we must continue to put ourselves in a position to solve the academic challenges of our children. Again, I think it's unfair to ask other people to do that. I think it's great that Eureka Math has developed its own version of Singapore Math. I think that Common Core and the American Teachers Federation and the National Council of Teachers of Mathematics have gone throughout the world and found best practices from other cultures. But what they might not realize is that the culture of mathematics in the United States of America is right up under their nose, and it's in the curriculum that we're developing here within the BitRick institution. And a lot of the majority of these strategies are rooted in ancient African indigenous knowledge systems and ancient African numeracy systems. So we're inviting you to participate because it is your inheritance. We're inviting you to participate because it's your birthright. But we're also inviting you to participate so that you can have a support network and you can have other parents that you can meet and talk to even when we're not having sessions. Have parents that can encourage you, parents that you can talk to and learn different methods from. More importantly than just the classes is the support network that we really want to foster. So I want you to keep that in mind, even if you don't have the financial means to participate in class. I ask that you share that information with us so that maybe we can figure out how to have some people who might have extra financial means be able to donate and have scholarships just to make sure that we continue to build a community that can build better curriculum for our children.
Yes, and for anyone who's not available at those times, or maybe that type of setup doesn't work for you, we also do have a few other options. We are available for consultations and also for professional development for those who work in learning centers or with co-ops. So that's another option too. You can always email us at solutions@africanmath.com. And that is the email address that was on the flyer for this webinar, solutions@africanmath.com, and we can get in contact with you that way. So we're going to open this up to Q&A, and sometimes the Q&A can go for a long time. Depends on how the conversation is going. So if anyone has to drop off, we understand. I do want to make sure that anyone who is interested in the Thursday sessions, starting in September, you can go to our website, africanmath.com, click on the link for live online classes, and you will see parent and educator sessions there as an option. We haven't confirmed how many participants, how many registrants we're going to have. But we are going to have to cap it at some point because we want to be able to provide as much assistance to everyone as possible. So if you really are interested, then please do reach out to us to ask any questions, or ask questions now during the Q&A so you can go ahead and get your spot. And with that said, again, if people end up having to go, we totally understand. We really appreciate you. And we definitely love you all.
Because love unites us all.